Hi, I'm Win Pedini from MeasureBit, and in today's video I'm going to show you 4 relatively straightforward steps to set up Google Enhanced Conversions using Google Tag Manager server-side. Before we jump right into Google Enhanced Conversions, I want to set a bit of context about why it is that I'm teaching you the philosophy that I am today with the setup that I'm teaching you, but also how that came about. So it all kicked off with iOS 14. Advertisers that were making a lot of money were suddenly losing money. But it all comes down to, and you're looking at this pretty complicated image here, but this is a representation of your ad networks, your website, your CRM, your cart, if you're running a shopping cart, and the technologies that are involved there, the data that's going backwards and forwards. And this is kind of like how I explain Google Tag Manager browser and Google Tag Manager server to clients. So this is what this is all about. All right, so in the past, web-based, browser-based tracking solutions work really well, but I've kind of colored these in red here, showing, this is danger. What's happening is over time, this has become more and more unreliable because of ad blockers, because of iOS 14, and now other technologies that are really filtering out the browser-based conversion data. But we still have the capability of connecting with our own server. Right? Anything that shares the same root domain as our main server has a trusted connection, meaning we can get data from users' browsers back to our own servers as long as they share the same root domain as our main website. And the reason why that still happens is because if these ad blocking technologies block the connection between your user's device and your own website, then most modern websites would stop functioning, right? Because they're very responsive. They're sending data back and forth all the time with notifications and chimes and people, friends messaging them. So a lot of modern technologies rely upon this real-time connection between the devices and your own website. But what's not trusted, what these ad blocking technologies are not doing, is they're not trusting the connection between your users' devices and third-party ad platforms. That's what's getting blocked. So if you're able to get the data from your website somehow back to your own server or a subdomain of your own server, then you can do whatever you want with that data within reason, as long as it's legal and as long as it's compliant with CCPA and GDPR. As long as you're legally allowed to, then you can take that data, repackage it, and send it off to Google Ads, Facebook Ads, Pinterest, TikTok, wherever you want. You can reuse that data as many times as you want by doing it from the server side. And the benefit of that is it cannot be blocked by these ad blocking technologies. Accompanying this video are a set of instructions that you can follow along. I think it will make it easier for you to get the little details that you need to get right. Having said that, the first thing that I want you to do is to scroll down on this article and to look at the prerequisites. Now you'll notice that there's a couple of things that you need to have set up. The first one is a Google Tag Manager container, and inside of that you're going to need 2 tags. The first one is a Google Analytics 4 configuration tag, and the second one is the Google Conversion Link tag. On the Google Tag Manager server side, you're going to need to have Google Ads Conversion Tracking tag and the Google Conversion Link tag again. Now, if all of that sounds like gobbledygook, don't be too concerned. I've got separate videos and content that shows you how to set these up separately. I didn't want to put this in the same video and the same content because otherwise this would be an overwhelming guide. So I'm assuming that you got these things set up, and I'm also assuming that you've got the data coming out of your system, whether it's Shopify, WooCommerce, or some other system that is going to give you the first name, last name, email, the address, the city and the province, etc. that you need in order to pass to Google to make this work. So there's 4 steps. The first one is to log into your Google Ads account. So go there now. And once you log in there, if you click on the tools and settings, you'll see from the drop down, if you go to conversions, and if you're tracking conversions already, great. If you're not, you'll have to add a conversion action. We've got one here, so I'm going to click on that. And then from the drop down, you'll see that there is a relatively new option. It says enhanced conversions. We're going to turn that on, and we're going to choose the global site tag or Google conversion or Google Tag Manager method. Okay, so I'm going to click on next. Now it's going to ask to check where this is installed. So grab the URL where your website lives and paste it into this box here. You can see mine is blurred. I'm trying to protect the privacy of my clients. So I'm going to click on check URL, and if everything checks out, what it's going to do is it's going to go and see if there's a valid Google Tag Manager instance available on that website or on that URL. So once we see this little blue symbol here, this little blue background, it tells us that we've got it, and so now we click on save. Step 2 requires at the very minimum a phone number plus either one of two additional data points. The first, which is the preferred one, is the email address or the street address that includes the street, the city, the state, the country, and the postcode. So let's do that in Google Tag Manager now. So inside of your Google Tag Manager web container, click on variables in the left sidebar. And then under user defined variables section, click new. Give the variable a name. And then click on variable configuration. From the drop down, type in the word user, and you'll see that there is a relatively new template there called user defined or user provided data. And then we're going to fill these out. Now I've already got these variables configured in my system. Like I said, if you haven't got your system set up to collect those variables, I've got different content that I've already posted up that shows you how to set up a Google Tag Manager container and how to save those variables as in Google Tag Manager. Okay, assuming that you've got those set up, I'm going to select each one from the drop down. So I'm just going to look for those now. And it helps if you've named them appropriately. So there's my email, there's the phone number. Let's go first name, surname, which is the last name, street, city, region or province or state, depending on the system that you're using. It will name these variables differently. Now, instead of the actual state, so if you're in New Jersey, we're looking for the actual state code, so this one would be NJ. Okay, so we're looking for the actual code, not the actual name. And same thing for country. If you're living in the USA, you would want USA, not United States of America. Okay, so we want the actual country code here. And then postcode, or the other one is zip code, so they're interchangeable. I've got zip here, and then we click on save. So step 3 involves configuring some settings within the Google Analytics 4 configuration tag. So in order to do that, go back to tags in the left hand side panel, and this time click on the GA4 or Google Analytics 4 tag, configuration tag, and you'll see that there's a relatively new toggle box that you can now enable, and this one says include user provided data from your website server only. Okay, so we're going to do that to enable it, and you're going to select the new variable that you've just created and click save. Now what that's going to do is it's going to take this predefined or pre-formatted user provided data, and it's going to send it to your GTM server. Step 4 is relatively straightforward. So first of all, before we leave the GTM browser container or the web container, we want to make sure that a couple of things that are happening. First, that we've got the user provided data variable set up, that we've toggled that button in Google Analytics 4. But we also want to make sure that the Google Ads conversion linker is enabled and running in this particular configuration. And so you can see that this loads on every page load. And then on the GTM server side, we also want to have a Google conversion linker tag running. And what this does is it gets Google Analytics 4, it gets Google conversion linker and Google Ads all swapping data together. They work together as a seamless family of products that pass data backwards and forwards. And you can see here that my Google conversion linker tag is firing on all pages on the server. And now finally we open up our Google Ads tag. Alright, so you can see this is a Google Ads conversion tracking tag on the server side. Now when you click and open this up, you'll see that there's a new option that says include user provided data. All we have to do is toggle that to enable it, and because of the aforementioned reasons, now we get access to that user provided data that we started collecting on the browser side. Now once you finish with those, you can click submit, but before we do that, let's test this really quickly. To test, we click on the preview button in the top right. This will open up a new debug mode window for GTM server. We're going to do the same thing for the browser container by clicking the preview mode for that one up in the top right hand corner, and I'm going to put in the link to the store that I'm testing. Click on connect. And now we can do a test purchase. So I'm going to do that right away. Add to cart. Checkout, and then I'm going to put in some details here. So I'm just going to pause my video and grab some details, and I'm also going to blur that out. Okay, so you can't see my screen where I'm putting this in at the moment, but just take my word for it that it is a valid phone number. And the reason why the phone number needs to be in there, as a reminder of what I said before, you need the phone number plus one other data point. Now the preferred other data point is the email address, but it could also be the full home address of the person that is your customer. Okay, so now that we've got the phone number, we've got the full first name, last name, address, city, country, state, and zip code. I'm going to proceed. Standard shipping. And finally, put in some test credit card details. Pay now. Okay, so we have our conversion, and if we go back to our GTM browser container, now we can see that we've got an event in the left hand side panel, and this is a purchase event. And so if I go to data layer now, the data layer tab on the right hand side panel, you'll see that I have some customer information. I've got an ID, first name, last name. Email is missing because of the way that I filled that form in, but we do have the phone number, remembering of course that this is critical for Google enhanced conversions. We have the address, city, province, code, we have the country code, and we have the zip. Right, so we have all the info we need, and we can also see that in our variables, if I scroll down here, I'm looking for our GAD, user-defined data, and we can see that all of that data that I just pointed out is there as well. And so there's our variable. We've confirmed that the data is in the variable, and we have our GA4 tag fired. Well, it did fire on page load, but that would have been streaming the data through to the server. Alright, so in order to confirm that, let's have a look at the server. So checking the event stream in GTM server, we can see that we've got a purchase event down the sidebar here. Click on that and we can see that the GA4, the Google Analytics 4 tag fired. And we can see that the Google Ads one for the purchase event also fired. So if I have a look at the event data that came in, we can see that we got the phone number, the first name, last name, postal code, city, region, country, and I want to point out here that these are both in that 2-digit lowercase format for the region and the country. Alright, so we're getting the data that's coming through Google Analytics 4. Which tags fired? We know that Google Analytics 4 fired, and we know that the Google Ads tag fired, and we know that we got a success event. It tells us here that the tag succeeded. Unfortunately, it doesn't give us any more feedback than that. That's just the way that the Google Ads server-side tag works, unfortunately. In the video description below, you'll find a link to the complete article that accompanies this, step-by-step instructions. If you need help, then feel free to book a free 20-minute call to discuss your project. And finally, if you found this useful, please like this video because it does help others to find our content, people who are trying to solve their tracking and conversion problems. So thank you.